All right, so you guys are going to have the next Gen meeting just virtually, right?
Oh, we're in.
All right,
All right.
we're gonna start this. Hello, everybody. Thank you so
All right,
much
so you
for
guys are going to have the
joining
next
us.
Gen meeting just
Uh,
virtually, right?
okay, I think
Oh,
I'm
we're
going
in.
to.
All right, we're going to start this.
Sorry about this. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of the Artist Stories series, co sponsored by New Jersey Youth Symphony and New York Youth Symphony. We are so pleased that you have joined us tonight, both on YouTube Live and also in this webinar room. We have a special guest tonight. And before I go into that, I just want to let you know that there's one more session left next week, next Wednesday, same time at 7 o'clock. Weston Sprott, trombonist and dean of Juilliard Pre-College Division, will be the final guest hosted by New York Youth. So I hope you can join us, and you can go to njys.org or nyys.org to register to receive the webinar link. Okay, so without further ado, let's get going on this. So tonight we have Sean C. Jones. You may really recognize his name if you are in the jazz world, or even if you're not. So I'm going to read his short bio. Music and spirituality have always been fully intertwined in the artist's vision of trumpeter, band leader, composer, educator, and activist, Sean Jones. Singing and performing as a child with a church choir in his hometown of Warren, Ohio, Sean switched from the drums to the trumpet at the age of 10. Sean is a musical chameleon and is comfortable in any musical setting, no matter what the role or the genre. He's equally adept in being a member of an ensemble as he's being a band leader. Sean turned a 6-month stint with the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra into an offer from Wynton Marsalis for a permanent position as lead trumpeter, a post he held from 2004 until 2010. In 2015, Sean was tapped to become a member of the SFJS, so collective, where he was a member until 2018. During this time, Sean has managed to keep a core group of talented musicians together under his leadership, forming the foundation for his groups that have produced and released 8 recordings on the Mac Avenue Records. The latest is his 2017 release, Sean Jones, Live from the Jazz Bistro. Sean has been prominently featured with a number of artists, recordings and or performing with many major figures in jazz, including Illinois Jacket, Jimmy Heath, Frank Foster, Nancy Wilson, Diane Reeves, Gerald Wilson, and Marcus Miller. Sean was selected by Miller, Herbie Hancock, and Wayne Shorter for their tribute to Miles tour in 2011. He has also performed with the Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Youngstown Symphony Orchestras, as well as Soulful Symphony in Baltimore and in a chamber group at the Salt Bay Chamber Festival. Sean is also an internationally recognized educator. He was recently named the Richard and Elizabeth Case Chair of Jazz at Johns Hopkins University's Peabody Institute in Baltimore. Before coming to Peabody, Sean served as the chair of the brass department at the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Just to go a little bit personally, I loved jazz. Growing up in Korea, I didn't get to listen to jazz. But when I came to this country when I was 12, I fell in love with big band. And so I dabbled at jazz piano and all that. But I thought rather than me talking to Sean Jones tonight, I invited my wonderful colleague here at New Jersey Youth Symphony, who heads the jazz program at NJYS, our wonderful Julius Tolentino, to carry on this wonderful conversation. And I'm going to be just an avid listener, but if I may ask for permission to jump in at any time to make some relevancy with lots of our kind of classical youth orchestra members who might be listening, both in New Jersey and New York. So without further ado, here is Julius Tolentino and Sean Jones.
Thank you, Helen. Welcome, Sean. It's great to see you here on this platform. And let me get right into it, man. You know, you've done so much at a very young age. You know, had some wonderful teachers, and I know you're very dedicated to teaching as well. And you've held a lot of positions, some of the best conservatories, and now you're doing amazing things at Peabody. You know, I know that in this short time, I've already heard, you know, the students, the progression and students that are coming to audition and the seriousness that you bring to that institution is really being recognized. I'm very happy for you, man. Very excited for you. And now you're also on the board of Jen for a while, now the president, officially, right?
Officially, we're official now.
And you know, I think we have a lot of young musicians here listening, and I know just from knowing you personally, just how dedicated you are to your craft and how serious you are about the instrument, the trumpet specifically, and just the way you just ferociously attack, you know, practicing and just the focus and just, you know, what it takes to be an artist and an educator, you know, all those things. Um, Maybe you could just expand on maybe your your passion. Where does this passion come from? Being able to do what you've done in such a little amount of time, and you continue to do. You're not. I can. We all can see that you are not, you know, even close to doing what you want to do. You know, there's always more, and you're going for it. So, what is the secret to that kind of passion?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Julius, for asking that question, and thank you for being here to moderate. And I want to thank Helen for inviting me. And this is a wonderful opportunity to share with you. And it's amazing to meet you, Helen. Thank you so much for what you're doing for young people in New Jersey and the surrounding areas. Very important, specifically in this time. You asked what prompts my seriousness and my dedication to the art form. I would have to say it's the art form itself, music itself. I always say that music kind of saved my life. And I don't say that because I wouldn't be alive had I not been introduced to music. I say it because I was definitely headed in a different trajectory early in my life. In that, I was one of those kids that was kind of a nerd. I got straight A's in school. And the reason I got straight A's is because I was always curious about the world around me. I was curious about the natural world, curious about the spiritual world because I grew up in church. I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, which is like pretty much as far into Pentecostal Christianity as you can get. I mean, so I make the joke all the time that I was in church 8 days a week, 397 days a year. And because of that curiosity and growing up in the Midwest and in the steel belt between Cleveland, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and also the auto industry, there wasn't really a lot for us to consider other than getting a job in a steel mill or getting a job at a factory or something like that, maybe being a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, any of that. But I was always curious about science, always curious about why and how things work, and especially how that relates to spirituality, because I've always known that there's something bigger than me and something bigger than all of us that kind of holds us all together. And so the culminating moment for me was the moment that, ironically, not being in music, because music was always a part of my life growing up in church. I mean, we sang everything. So it wasn't a thing for me. But to answer the question specifically, It was when a teacher of mine in the 6th grade gave me 2 Miles Davis albums. One of those albums was Kind of Blue, and the other one was Tutu. And when I went home and I put those albums on, something just kind of sparked inside of me. And I knew at that moment that I was going to be in music in some fashion. I didn't understand what it meant to have a career in music. I didn't understand what a career was. I just knew that that was something that had to be a part of my being for the rest of my life. Then I started to practice this thing. And when I started to practice it, I realized that there was joy in the journey of learning it. I couldn't play it at all. It took me a month to be able to get a sound out. And the harder it got, the more I fell in love with it. I love challenges. And I realized that at some point, perhaps maybe in high school, maybe early undergraduate studies, I realized that, wow, I was never going to learn it. I was never going to be good at it. I was never going to conquer this thing. Every day, it was literally going to be me going after it and figuring it out. And so I decided at that moment that, wow, I have an entire lifetime to try to figure something out. And I knew at that moment that that's the direction that I wanted to go in. You know, you may or may not know this, but I never wanted to be on the road. I never wanted to be a touring musician. Sounds crazy because if you look at what I've done, a lot of it has been that, perhaps more than 50%. But really, all I wanted to do was be really good at this thing so that I could learn how to teach it. I've always wanted to be an educator, starting in high school. Always wanted to be an educator. So that relentless pursuit of excellence regarding trumpet playing, musicianship, and education is what fuels my fire. And it really fuels my fire now that we're in 2020 dealing with COVID because we're all relearning everything. And I think it's fantastic, you know, but I'm also a glass half full kind of guy. So I hope that answers your question. Just the challenges of it, the difficulty, the lifelong journey that it takes to be good at this thing. That's what fuels my fire.
Yes, man, that's beautiful. And I've heard you've probably heard the saying. I don't know who penned it first, but like, um, if you take care of the music will take care of you.
That's right.
And we all kind of live by that code. And we have a lot of young musicians here, so I'm just trying to think of some things to help them maybe have some insights, whether they decide to pursue music or just in life in general. So, just seeing your career flourish, I was there when we were on the board of Gen together, and I remember you getting the call. You were about to make a transition from teaching at Berkeley to leading a program at Peabody. That was a big step, and I was really taken aback. Not taken aback, but just really impressed with the integrity the way you handled it, and what you wanted for yourself. And I thought good to kind of get some insight on when you're making big decisions like that. What fuels that decision? It's not necessarily the money, like we talked about. It's what as an artist, as a professional musician, what fuels you to make these choices? Because you've had a lot of make a lot of choices and do things and put them down and go to the next thing. You were at Jazz at Lincoln Center and you decided to move on. There's a lot of big career choices that you've made. And so when you make these big choices, is there one kind of thread that helps you kind of stay focused and kind of decide your path?
That's a great question. And I'll start off by saying that I have gotten used to comfort inside of being uncomfortable. Discomfort actually makes me comfortable.
Hmm.
And I think that because I have grown up the way that I've grown up, I grew up in Warren, Ohio, and they say that there was a serious middle class community there, and everybody worked at General Motors, you know, the auto industry, or steel mill. You know, the idea of the middle class in this country as it pertains to the auto industry and other industries is false. There is no middle class. You either have money or you don't have it. So I grew up in a very uncomfortable environment. And I realized in that uncomfortable environment that there are certain things that last beyond all those other things. One of those is family. The other thing is your constant growth and development as a spirit human being. And you can't grow and develop unless you become uncomfortable. Every moment in my career that I've gotten comfortable, I immediately leave the situation. Immediately. Because comfort means for me the end. And as long as I have breath in this body, I'm going to keep going. So the first instance of being in a comfortable situation, I would have to say, was when I gained tenure. I achieved tenure at Duquesne University, tenure professor after 7 years. Major accomplishment, right? When I received that letter, I immediately started to feel stagnant. I immediately started to feel like, wow, this doesn't feel right. I have a job for life that I don't have to work for. That's not right. So I gave it up immediately and I started to look for the next position. Why? Because I needed to grow. And so, lo and behold, the opportunity came at the Berklee College of Music, and I decided to put my hat in the ring, and I got the job. Well, I was there for 5 years. Same thing happened. I got comfortable. I was doing the job. I understood the job, but I felt like inside of me, like, wow, I could stay here and just be happy with it, or I could look for other things. I didn't actively start to look for other things, but I put the thought in the universe, you know. I started to think about what's next. And then the opportunity at Peabody Conservatory happened, and it was really striking for me in that the program had to be built from nothing. They literally gutted the entire program. And so I had to take all of my experience up until that moment in time in higher academia and apply it to building a program. And I thought to myself, if I let this opportunity go and I don't at least investigate it, then I'm going to look back on my life with regret. And I did the same thing with my musical career. A lot of people thought I was crazy when I left jazz at Lincoln Center. You know, I'm in a salaried position at Jazz and Lincoln Center playing with one of the greatest big bands. Okay, I did it. It's documented that I did it. And I didn't want to stay stagnant. So I left the band and I started playing with Marcus Miller's band. After I got comfortable in Marcus Miller's band, I left that band. And then I started performing with the SF Jazz Collective. Once I did that, it's time to leave that. And so, in the words of Miles Davis, you know, it's important for an artist to never get comfortable because it is your job to grow. It is your job to evolve. It is your job to be fearless so that you can unchain every other person that has fear inside of them. You have the keys. I want the keys to freedom. And so if I have the keys to freedom, then I could free everybody else around me. I could free my students. I could free my peers. I could let them know that life is not over if you move on and you evolve. Especially now. There are people that are afraid. There are people whose jobs have gone away. There are people, I mean, we all know them, especially in the arts. There's no stage to perform on right now. Now you could resist that and you could say, oh, well, it's over for me. Or maybe I got to do another job, or maybe I have to just do whatever. No, it's an opportunity for you to do two things. One, really dive inside of who you are as a person. Spend a lot of time in the mirror. These are great mirror moments because you're stuck with yourself. And so I've been spending a lot of money, moments in front of the mirror, just figuring out who Sean is. And also, it's an opportunity to evolve. Perhaps you've never dealt with technology. Well, now's the time to learn. Perhaps you've never dealt with various DAWs and various platforms online, Pro Tools, Logic. Now it's time to do that. And there's no pressure to do it because there's nothing to put out there. So take your time and evolve. But going back to the original question is, I am literally comfortable in discomfort. I have made it a priority in my life to never accept comfort. And I'm comfortable with that. So as long as I feel like, oh man, I don't know what's going on, then I feel good.
Right.
Julius, if I may, jump in, they're just, I'm taking notes, believe it or not, Sean. You're saying some of the most profound things, and, I'm having my own mirror moment right now. But I just wanted to, I was reading some of your blogs, kind of here and there. And the very last thing that you're telling students, it says Tip Tuesday tip, right? The shed. This is, back in 2017. But you said greatness is an extreme. Everything else is either average or below. I mean, listening to the fact that you are comfortable when you're uncomfortable inside, it is a radical revolution for probably, especially for our young people. And I just wanted to kind of equate maybe perhaps how to achieve greatness in things is exactly the journey that you were just talking about. Um, Not being afraid of discomfort, but not getting, complacent about things. Uh, Not that you're not focusing on what you're doing at the moment, but the universe will tell you where to be when, and kind of listening to that is really an amazing advice. It's better than an advice.
Yeah.
It's an amazing way of living, I think. So I just wanted to reflect that with your own words of, hey, students, greatness is extreme. You're not going to just get there, but everything else is just average. I don't think anyone wants to be an average person, but look what kind of journey one must take. So just wanted to interject that.
That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. And if I could just sort of offer what I mean by extreme, what I mean by extreme is that it's an exception to the rule. Most people are average because they are either afraid to go beyond themselves, or they're not willing to put in the energy that it takes to go beyond themselves. And what I'm talking about is the highest form of freedom that you could have. Freedom is, in essence, a choice of a state of mind. It's not about a physical place. It's not about a specific job per se or an achievement. Freedom is a state of mind. If we look at Nelson Mandela's life, he was in jail, solitary confinement for several years, but he was free in his mind. And for me, a job that I can't grow in is a prison. For me, playing the same songs that I'm good at playing and never learning new ones is prison. For me, waking up every day, looking at the same syllabus, sharing the same information that I've shared for 20 years to new students is prison. And so if I'm in prison, I can't free anyone. Freedom is also going and sitting in a restaurant where perhaps I'm not wanted. Freedom is also leaving a relationship that I know is not healthy for me, no matter how painful it is. Freedom is going to a jam session where you know you're going to be the saddest person there playing and going anyway to learn. And so freedom requires you to be vulnerable. It requires you to bear it all. And I've gotten accustomed to living my life with my heart on my sleeve. I've gotten accustomed to living in such a way that there are no secrets with me. And I think it's time for more fearlessness in this time, because we're all human, all of us. We all have the same issues. We all have the same fears. We all have the same, it's the same. There's just, minute little differences based on circumstance. And so I know that one day that my time on this earth is going to be over. And when it's over, I want to be one of the people that had the keys. And when people look back on my life, I want them to say, wow, this kid from Warren, Ohio, he faced it all. Maybe that means that I failed, I die as a failure. Maybe that means that whatever it means, I'm willing to do it. I'm just not afraid anymore. And I think that right now, and I keep bringing up 2020 because this is a great awakening for all of us. Everything that you prepared for, look back on January, 31st? Everybody's like, yeah, 2020, let's go. All of your plans gone. What are you going to do? Reinvent. Now's the time to be fearless. And so that's why I live the life the way that I live. I'm just not afraid. I'm not afraid to try new things. I'm not afraid to try to play a composition that I know I can't play. I'm not afraid to check out something or a new type of music that I've never gotten into. Why? Because I want growth. I love butterflies, but more than the butterflies is I love the cocoon. I love the larva, because people look at that and they say, oh, that's ugly. Oh, that's disgusting. It's so dirty. Oh my God. And then you see that thing moving around and it's struggling. It's like, no. I have to be the butterfly. So the thing is the larva that's inside of the cocoon, it already knows that it's a butterfly. It already knows. If it didn't know that it was going to fly, it would die. The butterfly in the cocoon knows. And so it's important for you to wake up every day, all of us to wake up every day, knowing that we're in a cocoon. And knowing that just on the other side, if you keep living, if you keep pressing, you keep practicing, this thing is hard. It's completely unnatural. To put a piece of metal on your face to make a sound that's beautiful makes no sense at all. None. So I've decided that because I've spent my life doing this and dealing with the difficulty of it, that I'm going to be the butterfly with this every day. And I'm going to live in that example. So that when it's time to play, it's nothing. And so the students that are watching are probably like, oh my God. Well, the oh my God for the average person that's just another day for me, because I want to live there. I want to live in the sky. I want to live on the top of the mountain. I want to live in the unknown. It's a scary place when you first get there, but when you stay there, there's no better place to be.
Yeah, love it.
Preach it, brother. That's all I can say.
I know. Incredible, man. We have a question, and she's here today. Miss Redis um, sent in
Oh wow!
yeah,
Hey,
Redis is here. Uh,
Sam.
we're so happy that she could join us. We both knew her husband, a wonderful jazz drummer, uh,
Oh man, one
very
of the greatest
underrated,
that ever lived.
one of the greatest that ever lived. Wingspan, Mulgrew Miller. He's played with everybody. But Tony was a
Woody Shaw.
Louis Shaw. Yes. Oh my God, it's Louis Shaw Rough Sides, of course. But Tony was a beautiful Tony Redis. We're talking about a wonderful drummer that left us too soon, and his wife is here, and she had a question for Sean. But we want to pay our respects, of course, to the great Tony Redis. Her question is: we'd like to get your thoughts on Black artists owning more of their art, as far as masters, compositions, and recording and record labels, distribution companies. Given the negativity surrounding Spotify and the loss of gigs due to the pandemic, seems like a good time for artists to rally around and lift each other up. Corporations don't seem to want to lift anything but their profit lines. Surprise, surprise. Years ago, Mr. Jones attended Rutgers. My husband, great drummer, Tony Redis. Thank you for your question, Miss Redis. Thank you for being here.
Well, first of all, it's so good to hear from you. Oh my God, it brought back so many memories of us playing together. And one of my favorite gigs with Tony was at a place in New Jersey, in New Brunswick. I can't. It's like a soul food restaurant. You
Oh,
remember?
Not Makeda's. I know what you're talking about. It was up
Yeah,
on a side street.
yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but man, we had a ball. And Charles Fambro was on that gig.
Wow.
May he rest in peace. One thing I do want to say before I answer that question is I don't believe in the idea of death. Death denotes ending, and I don't believe that anything really truly ends. I think that it transforms and transfers. So Tony is still around here in some way capacity, and he's still influencing lives. And
Sure.
I look forward to his continued journey and influencing all of us. Regarding what you meant specifically, I think it's important to take a step back and understand that we live in the United States of America. We live in a very capitalist society. Pretty much everything is the bottom line is money. That saying that says the love of money is the root of all evil. That is true. When you have a lobby, a gun lobby, that can't see the fact that a couple dozen children were murdered, a couple dozen children were murdered in New England and Connecticut. Those friends we all know, Jules, they were murdered and they did absolutely nothing but say buy more guns, shows you the evil of this country. This country was founded on that evil notion, getting more, more, more money, 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 money. Myself, as a black man, was considered three-fifths of a human being. Three-fifths of a human being for half of the time that this country existed. Almost half the time. Why? For money. And because money is so prominent in our nation, there are other evils that come with it. Racial issues, social economic disparity, all of these things. So you have to tackle that if you want to really get to the root. Now, how that sort of feeds into what we do in our industry, yes, own your own stuff. I was with a label for several years. I'm no longer with Mac Avenue Records. We decided to part ways. Um, the only reason to really be on a label nowadays is for marketing, in my opinion. Okay, you can get your name out there if you're lesser known. Perhaps they have a marketing vehicle that will push you in a certain direction. Now, there are things with signing on any label that you give up. Perhaps some of your publishing. Most labels do not let you own the master. But I would suggest that if anybody wants to put music out right now, put it out with their own label. It's not hard to do. There are many mechanisms out there that could get your music out there. Regarding Spotify, I mean, that's the perfect example of the evils. This man, the CEO and founder of, I think he's the founder of Spotify, but he's the CEO now. He actually said that if you want more money, work harder, put out more content, which goes against artistry, period. You don't just put out music to make money. Imagine if people just put out music to make money. How much crap? It's already a bunch of crap out there anyway. But imagine how much crap would be out there if that was the sole reason why anybody created anything. It's sad. He doesn't even understand that perhaps there's a period in this human being's life who just happens to be an artist. There's a period of darkness. There's a period where maybe they lose a loved one. Maybe there's a period of happiness that they just have to reflect on. I just had, I have a almost 5-month-old child, and I'm still grasping on the fact that like that's a reality for me. I'm still trying to like get over the wow of it before I can even go to over here to the piano and compose a song. But based on his logic, okay, let me just write a song. Well, my daughter's life means more to me than just writing a song to get a paycheck and calling it Phoebe. So we have to take a step back and not be run by money. The other side of it is there's a way to pretty much monetize anything. And I'm going to say, there are a lot of people that are not very intelligent that are billionaires. They just hustle. And so it's important to reinvent, put out product, collaborate with other people. There are a lot of ways to monetize yourself in music. There's education, there's production, there's composition, there's management. There's so many different ways to do it that I would just suggest discovering and going about all of those various ways. And then it's important for artists to also get a team of people that they trust and they want to grow with. If you're a young artist, or not even just a young artist, if you're an artist like myself, I have a team of people where when I call them and say, hey, I'm hearing something or I got an idea, the first question is not how much money is it going to pay. The first question is, oh man, what can I do? Send me the track. Let's check it out. If you're operating on that framework, then you could create freely. And then you can go and monetize things. So I hope that answers the question. And it's so good to hear from you. Reach out to me. It'd be great to catch up. By the way, that doesn't just work for Black people. That's for all people. There's only one race. That's the human race. Race is a false construct, and it was created by Hammurabi's code arbitrarily to separate people into class systems based on money. And that was a few thousand years BC. So this is not new what we're dealing with in this country regarding race. Now it's pretty egregious here because it has created a deep seed of hatred for people that don't even understand that they are being put against one another to make other people more gain more money. Poor white people hating poor Black people, and they're both poor. I mean, it's crazy. Arbitrarily, but that's a system of manipulation, and that's how people are. So I want to say to everybody, regardless of your race, own your own product if you can. Save money. The one thing I've learned and I'm kind of going off on a tangent right now, but the one thing I've learned about COVID-19 is I don't need it nearly as much as I think I need. I don't need to be out on the road all the time. I don't need this. I don't need this extra this. you can survive with probably 50% less of what you have. We need to get back to that minimalist mentality, you know. It's like the new car syndrome. You get a new car, and for 3 months it feels good. And then after you pay for that car for 3 months, it's like, oh my God. And the new car smell is gone. It's just another car. So perspective is key.
That's true. um, just thinking about Ms. Reed's question and just the state of being able to self-promote and monetize things and be like all entrepreneurs, in our own way as musicians and artists, especially as jazz musicians. Um, I saw a post by the great Russell Malone today, and he was talking about mentorship and we were fortunate to be around great musicians. I got to stay with Jackie McLean, play with Illinois Jazz for many years, other statesmen like that, and you have done the gambit. You've played with everybody and learned from them. And I've always saw as this tradition in jazz has always been this oral tradition has been handed down, and it's a very I still think it's a really important aspect of the music to be around musicians that are older and learn from them and try to digest as much as you can. And now as an educator, that's kind of where my passion for education really stems from, is being around these people and trying to keep that continuum going in some way. Um, but I'm curious to what you think as far as like, I've just seen we've seen the jazz scene specifically change so much in terms of a student, or a young musician not really playing with anybody, being able to put out a record on their own and maybe get some gigs and, you know, whether there's as much substance there maybe as somebody else or however you see it, the jazz media doesn't really care. They're just going to put, the new face on whoever it is. But, you know, there's definitely an interesting dichotomy with, that tradition has been there for a long time. But I'm sure it's always been like that where there was a cat in other generations that never really, played with anybody and just became a star too. So there's just things I'm not trying to start,
No, this is
it's called the jazz police or anything. I just think it's an interesting concept to kind of talk about.
man. That's such a great question. And if you would have asked me this 20 years ago, I would have said that, yeah, man, nobody's playing with anybody else. There's no mentorship. Where are the great bands? How do I come up? But, I think it's important to take a step back and understand that with every generation and with everything, that there is good and bad with it. If you look back at Charlie Parker's experience, Charlie Parker had a cymbal thrown at him on the stage because he couldn't play Cherokee. If you do that now, somebody's going to jail.
Yeah, it's true.
So, do I think that was wrong for Joe Jones to do that? In that time, no. But that was that time. We're in this time, and I think that it's important for us to reflect this time and where the music is and where the education is in this time. Now, I think some of the exciting things is that our kids have more access to anything that we ever had. They have technology. They have the ability to. I mean, when I'm running NYL Jazz, man, I mean the level that these kids are able to play on. I mean, it's ridiculous, and that's because there's access there. Um, there's also the other side of it is that everyone is kind of me, 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 me. I, I this, I that, I. What's my latest video? There's a lot of that. So it's important for us as educators to understand the good of the past and the not so good of the past, and allow this moment that we're living in to be what it is, to be very unique in its own time in 2020. But we are the curators of the past and the deliverers of the past. So when our students are looking for advice, when our students are looking or they have questions, that is coming from a place of what I call ancestry. We are the living books about what happened 20 years ago. We can tell them about Illinois Jacquette, the good and the bad. We can tell them about Jimmy Heath, the good and the bad, and just say it almost as if we're just delivering information to them. And it's up to them to do what they do inside of their generation without necessarily scolding them and saying, no, there's a lot of that, with every generation. As I get older, I want to tell, kids, no, man, you're not playing bebop. That's not what's happening. You're not making the changes. Well, maybe they aren't, but maybe that's not what they're supposed to do. If you look at the 70s, how many people was playing? How many people could play bebop in the 70s? I got, few thousand albums here. And if you listen to the vast majority of what happened in the 70s, there's not a whole lot of bebop there. Is it great music? Yes. Amazing music. At some point, George Duke realized that he needed to be George Duke and not Wynton Kelly, not Bobby Timmons, not Bud Powell. Why? Because the world has never seen George Duke. At some point, I had to realize that I'm not Wynton Marsalis. I'm not Woody Shaw. I'm Sean. And I just have to put out Sean based on everything that I've learned from the sage advice of those that have come before me, from the influences of my peers, and also what's coming. So it's important to kind of just take a step back and ask, what is this moment requiring of me? What am I supposed to do in this moment? Because music doesn't care about our opinions of it. It doesn't. Music doesn't care. Music's going to be music. Like there were cats, people say, well, this cat can't play, or this cat can't sing, or that. I'm like, it exists, so it's valid.
You know, wow, just so much to take in. I just wanted to interject with some of your own words from your blogs too, as Julius was talking about mentorship, and you two are just amazing performers, but also really gifted educators. And I think we don't take that, we shouldn't take that for granted. And Sean, you had written, I guess you had a reaction to a teacher online basically taking credit for a formal student's success.
Yeah.
So these are kind of couple thoughts, or maybe more than a couple, that you jot down for educators out there, I think. And I was really thinking about this in my own world as a mentor for young musicians too. And so you had said, that very student would have likely been successful with or without you. You just happen to be a pit stop along that student's journey. Reality check, right? And number two, don't seek accolades or awards for stuff you are supposed to do. We're supposed to teach them, mentor them, right? Three, be thankful that the universe allowed you to be at the right place at the right time to help someone out. Beautiful. Four, allow what you actually teach and its outcomes to determine successes, not just your words. Number five, by claiming some and not others based on your idea of success, You devalue the relationships of those that haven't reached what you deem to be successful. I think there's just so much, again, spirituality in everything you say. And I think it shows in your playing and just whole your embodiment of that balance, intersection of music and spirituality. And I think those were just the most amazing and kind of, you know, uh, really important advices for all of us who claim to be teachers, mentors, educators, and come kind of stepping on that podium in my, my world, and telling them what to do. And yeah, so it was just something that I will keep and post it on my bulletin board, remind myself every day.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And it's true, eh, teaching is hard. And it's hard because, geez, you know, we've spent hours, countless hours, thousands of hours learning how to play, ingesting information. And and throughout all of those experiences, not just learning how to play and ingesting information, but living in those instances, you form an identity. And that identity that you form, once it's challenged, you feel threatened.
Mm.
I feel that every day. Man, what I learned isn't right. Oh my God, like there's a new way to do this? What are you talking about? What do you mean this is not how you play the trumpet? What do you mean this is another way? What do you mean? No, this is how I do it. This is my success. What do you mean? How dare you tell me, this 42-year-old man, that I don't know how to play? How dare you? I've been playing for 20 years. How many times have we heard that? Well, I hearken back into something that some words that changed my life, and they're from Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix said, I used to live in a room full of mirrors, and all I could see was me. And then I took my spirit and I crushed those mirrors. Now the whole world is there for me to see. And at some point, I realized for myself that if I'm able to look at everything outside of myself as an opportunity to conform to that other thing, then that gives me more life. That makes me more expansive. And perhaps that thing that I have to connect to actually eliminates a small portion of my identity, then it's better for me anyway. So I'm always in that thought. And I would challenge educators to do the following. Go on journeys with your students. Learn from them. The same way that for those of you that have sons and daughters, I look at this 5-month-old baby and she's teaching me every single day. She's teaching me that I don't know what I think I know. She's
It's
teaching
only
me
the
that,
beginning, let me tell you.
yeah, she's teaching me that she's her own person. She has her own identity. She has her own way of looking at things. And if there are over 10 billion people in the world at this point, that means that there are 10 billion perspectives on reality. And each one of those 10 billion perspectives, if given the opportunity, can project that reality so that there are billions, literally billions of options to see the entire world, to hear music a different way, to grow. And so me being limited to only my perception, man, that means I have 10 billion other opportunities to grow. And I'm looking at life that way. And if we look at how we teach and educate our kids that way, then, oh my God, it's going to be so freeing for them, so freeing for us. And perhaps this trajectory that we're on into enlightenment, which I feel we're all on, little bit by little, there's a shift going on. And it takes time, it takes generations. And in this limited time that I have on this earth, I want to make sure that I'm a part of that trend, that arc of justice and equality and moving forward and learning. I want to make sure I'm on the right side of that.
That's great. We are wow, I can listen to you forever here, but it is 5 minutes before our time is, up, and then we have one of our participants asking a question. What advice would you give to young musicians about structuring their time during COVID lockdown?
It's a great question. The first thing is create a schedule. Especially those students, we're all gearing up to go back into school, which I have my own thoughts of. Maybe I'll share another time. But students are given the great gift of the schedule that they don't have to think about. Typically, at the start of every semester, if you're in college, or at the start of every quarter or whatever, when you're in high school, middle school, elementary school, you know what your days are going to be like Monday through Friday. Inside of that time, schedule practice time and do the same for the weekend. Create a grid about, if you can only practice 1 hour a day, make sure that you know what hour that's going to happen every day. If you can practice 3 hours a day or three different practice sessions, schedule that in. And then after you schedule it in, realize that you're the one that created that schedule. So it's not like when you get ready to practice, like, oh my God, I got to practice. No, it's something that you want to do. So enjoy the freedom of realizing that this is your decision to practice. It's your decision. I had to look at, going to the gym the same way. It's like, oh my God, I got to go to the gym. Oh my God, it's time to go to. Well, that's what I chose. So live with your choices. And the other thing I want to tell students is that this is a great time to really figure out what it is that drives you, what it is that excites you. What is that thing that you wake up every morning and you get ready, like, I want to do this thing, or I'm curious about this thing? What is that thing that when you go to bed at night, it's like, man, that seems like it's only a dream. It's only a dream. Well, guess what? In the words of Blake, eternity is in love with the creations of time. I say that all the time. Eternity is all things that were, are, and will be. A creation of time has a definitive beginning and a definitive ending. I am a creation of time. And eternity loves me because my existence makes all of eternity for a seen by everybody else that can perceive me in the now. Some people view eternity as God. Some people view it as nature. Some people, whatever you view it as. I am all of eternity in the now. So when you look at me, you are seeing eternity. When I look at you, I'm seeing eternity. So it's important for you to do, to produce, to do things so that all of eternity, all of who we are as human beings, all who we are as just dust in the universe can continue to move because our existence is in moving. And so I would challenge students to figure out that schedule, and then those dreams that come to you, that's eternity speaking to you, telling you to do it. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. If you can think about it, it is possible. At one point in time, the light bulb was just a thought in someone's mind. Man, I wish I could go in my house and just flick a switch and then lights are on. Guess how many people thought it was crazy? Probably millions. But only a couple people decided that they were going to turn the dream into a reality. And now we can walk in our houses and flick a switch and there's light.
Wow. I don't know what we can say better than that, except, I know Emily Dickens, she says, dwell in possibility. And that's been kind of in my bookcases for a long time.
Yes.
Um, Julius, you were asking some of the most poignant questions, and it was just a pleasure and a privilege to be kind of in this company, listening to this conversation. There were so many takeaways for our students. One thing that I can hear some of our students, Julius, our New Jersey Youth Symphony, you know, uh, all of our lives are about deadlines, right? There's a absolute time by when we must finish our work and our homework, and our tests are on this day and our auditions are on this day, to hearing that you're a speckle of dust in this eternity. It's They're going to dream about that, right? And somehow find that balance of living in this, yes, capitalistic world where me, I have to put myself out there before somebody else does. The competition and the fierceness of that, yet finding that inner freedom and being fearless. I think it's something that, I'm a little bit older than you, Sean, but, I'm going to start to really have to think about this too, right? And so I'm just kind of sharing that summary of some of the highlights that I think maybe young people can take away, feeling really uncomfortable. Like, what is he talking about?
Yeah. So if I could just offer one more quick thing,
No, please do.
the comfort is you. There has never been a Helen like you in the world. There has never been a Julius like you in the world. There's never been a Sean like me ever. I am unique. The world will never see another me once I'm gone. The world will never see another you once you're gone. So
Right.
everything that comes to you is unique. Everything that comes with you wants to be born out of your uniqueness and your experience. So you can rest inside of that uniqueness, knowing that all of eternity decided to come together in the right now to produce you so that you can give and be for the rest of us.
Yay. Absolutely. I want to just ask Julius if you have any kind of final thoughts in your conversation with Sean. And Sean, if I may, I mean, you got your horn right there. I can't imagine ending this session without hearing something from you. Would that be okay?
That's not a problem. I'll play a little bit of something.
Yeah, maybe, Julius, kind of wrap it up for us, and then we'll, close with
Well,
Sean.
it's always a pleasure, Sean. I mean, I learned so much being around you, man, hanging out with you, and it's really cool to kind of really pick your brain and some asking the questions that I need to really enlighten us on. Thank you again for all you've done for jazz education and musicians all over the world, and specifically helping us out in KYS on several occasions. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, baby.
What a treat. Oh, I feel, so happy right now and so full of life. And I just want to, last time thank you, Sean, for joining us, and thank you, Julius, for facilitating this conversation. And whether you're playing or speaking, Sean, I feel like that marriage between music and spirituality, that intersecting happens. And I feel like I was just fed with so much important nuggets of life. And so thank you so much. And I know our students and our audience have gotten so much from this conversation, and I hope in the future we can have you back to talk more about many other topics that we couldn't even get to. So be well during this time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, reminder, one last one in the series of artist stories, Wednesday next week, same time, 7 o'clock. And please go to nyys.org or njys.org to receive your the webinar link. Okay. Thank you so much.